Kamusta mga ka-SoJ TV? Ako po si Jannelle and you're watching So Jannelle, your destination for your weekly dose of stories of immigration and representation. Ngayong hapon, we are coming to you from San Pedro, California, where we visited with LA County Supervisor Janice Hahn. If you think her name sounds familiar, that's because we have mentioned her a few times here on the show dahil isa po siya sa masugid na taga-suporta ng ating Philippine American community. In fact, she is one of, if not the biggest sponsor of the Philippine American Friendship Day celebration na ginanap not too long ago, July 15th, at the Don Canabi Park in Cerritos, and also from last year. She has done so much for our community, and this is our time to get to know her.
Mr. Hahn, I didn't know you were a Beatle fan. What do we have here? Young daughter?
Yes, Janice and I are here at the Hollywood Bowl. We're Beatle fans.
How'd you talk your father into bringing you here tonight?
Well, I just put on my special charm for him and told him I'd really like to come a lot. And he kind of, you know, how fathers are.
LA County Supervisor Janice Hahn, hello, and thank you so much for welcoming us to your beautiful office here in San Pedro, California.
It's great to be with you. I'm glad you're here in San Pedro.
Right. I've been wanting to speak to you first, you know, just to get to know you more, but then at the same time introduce you to our viewers. This show airs on TFC, which is the Filipino channel. It also airs on ANC, which is an Asian news channel, and it airs on KNET, which is a digital channel here in Southern California. So say hello. I'm sure you have a lot of fans in those areas.
Yes, hello everyone. Mabuhay.
You are not new to politics. You were raised in a political family. What was that like, growing up, seeing, I guess, public service?
Well, it's all I ever knew because really the day I was born, my father began his campaign for LA County Supervisor. So I grew up the next 40 years as the daughter of a Los Angeles County Supervisor. So I saw all of it up close and personal. And some of the things I most remember are how he was always so welcoming to people. Like anytime, any place we were, whether we were at church or at a restaurant and people came up to him and needed help, he always said, I will help you. Many times at our home on a Saturday morning, people would knock on our door and my father would let them in and he would sit in the living room and try to understand what their issue was. And then he said, don't worry, I will take care of it. So I grew up thinking that's a great line of work, right? People ask you for help and then you help them. And so it's really all my brother and I ever saw him do was live this great life of public service. And of course, he was beloved. So that helped shape our opinion of what it would be like to go into public service.
He was beloved because also, as you said, he was always approachable. He was always willing to help. He was generous with his time. But if you're in a family setting and that's your dad, and I interviewed other children of public servants as well, some of them have admitted to having formed some kind of a resentment, especially in the beginning when they didn't understand, like, that's my daddy, I want to play with him, I want to talk to him, I want him to read him a story, but he's talking to other people and other people need him.
Well, my father always took my brother and I along with him. So we went to many openings of swimming pools where we got to jump in the pool, right? Or we went to openings of golf courses or parks or libraries. Many times he would put us in the car and just drive around the district and teach us about storm drain projects, you know, or he would stop on a corner and talk to a pastor of a church. So we never felt that he was not there for us. We were always a part of his life, and he spent a lot of time, you know, making sure we knew what he did. And so we were very proud of him.
What a great way to grow up then, like seeing all that. When it was time for you to start a career, you also dabbled in the private sector. Why was that?
I did. It took me a long time to come back around to running for political office. I had an older brother, and like many families, the older brother usually
Carries the torch.
inherits the family business,
Yes.
whatever it is. And I talked to a lot of women who tell me that it was very similar in their families, whatever the business is.
Right.
It was just assumed that the eldest son would take it over. And I think that was the underlying, maybe unspoken expectation that my brother would go into politics and I wouldn't. So I did. I spent years as a classroom teacher. Then I worked for a shopping center developer. Then I worked for a trash company. Then I worked for an investment banking firm. And I worked for a utility company, Southern California Edison.
Yes.
So I did a lot before I was finally elected as a city councilwoman.
So at what point did you say, stop, I'm not going to run away from this calling to serve?
I think it hit me, you know, I sort of remember during one of these jobs, maybe just at the end of the day or lying in bed, I in the dark, I thought, what am I doing?
Right.
I know what my purpose is. I know what my calling is. I need to just embrace it. And it felt really like kind of an epiphany that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I was good at some of the other jobs, but they didn't fulfill that space inside of you for the purpose that you know that you're here for. So it was that moment that I thought, I've got to do what I was born to do.
Right. And so you did it, had in the game, got elected. Was there pressure knowing that the Hahn family name was behind you or looming above you? Your dad was beloved. Your brother also had a good record. Was that something that you were considering also, like some kind of pressure on your shoulders to live up to the name?
Of course, and in fact, the first election I ran for, I lost, and I became the first Hahn in my family to lose. So it sort of reinforced that, well, maybe, you know, maybe the girl is not the one to do this. So I persisted, but always it has been, and I look at it more as a legacy that I aspire to, as opposed to a burden. Because it's such a beloved name, my father and my brother, that it really helped propel me. And there were times when maybe I would feel a little disappointed in myself or discouraged, and someone out of the blue would come up and say something about my father. They would have a story about my father, and it would be a story that I hadn't heard before. And I thought, no, this is what your legacy is, and you can achieve a similar sense of doing things for people.
We see more and more of women in politics now, though, but it wasn't so when you started as well. I'm sure that added another layer of challenge for you.
It really did. It's hard for a lot of women today to kind of grasp that, but when I started out, there were very few women political leaders, very few mentors. We didn't have a lot of women initiatives to get women to run when I first started. So it was more difficult to raise money. Right. It was more difficult to have people take you seriously. And there was quite, a challenge for women. I believe when I went to Congress in 2011, it hit me that out of the 12,000 people that had been elected to Congress, only 212 had been women. So we're getting better, right. But I was really kind of in the new class of women who really, decided to run for office, which makes me always want to try to reach out to other women and give them the encouragement that they might need.
Right, especially nowadays, right? We still need to push for more equity, push for more women to be out there and to just, do different positions, go run for different positions as well. But I know that there's this, you did it as a mom and now as a grandmom. How did you do it? For me, the balancing act, right?
Yeah, it's true. You can't have it all. You can't do it all. Something will have to give. But yeah, I was a single mom with 3 wonderful children, but it was very challenging. I remember, running for office and making, my 8-year-old, I didn't want to leave him at home alone, so I made him walk precincts with me. And many of my children, phone banked or worked on my campaigns. But it was challenging. What I did? I relied on other mothers in my community can you pick up Mark from soccer? Can you take this one to band practice? Is it okay if they spend the night tonight because I'm getting back really late? So I really depended on other women in the community, which is really what we do.
Right.
That's really what we do. I'm pretty sure in all cultures, the women rely on other women for help when we need it.
Exactly, because it really does take a village.
It really does.
Which brings me to the next part of the interview, which is community, because community seems to be at the heart of really everything that you do.
Community is really where I, sort of found my grassroots supporters. After I lost my first election, I really just jumped into the community. I was in the PTA, I was, a soccer mom, I was, working with the Chambers of Commerce. So I really got into the community and realized that that's the voice that, when I listen to it, is the one that gives me the best direction. And still to this day, I try to listen to communities, their issues, their wants, their needs. And if you listen, they'll speak up.
Right.
Today I was opening a pickleball, and it came from a petition of 300 people in the community.
Wow.
Who said, we've been talking about this too long. We have a petition, Supervisor Hahn. We want you to listen to us. We want a pickleball court. And I listened to them, and that's what we did today.
Right, and that's why we're also very thankful to you. I know we've discussed this so many times on the show. We've covered it, the Philippine American Friendship Day celebration. This year and last year, both years, last year especially, and this year as well, without your support, without the support of Supervisor Hahn, this would not have been made possible. And I also like that during the event itself, you took ownership of that it's your event, because it really is yours in collaboration with the Filipino community. What pushed you to support our community in that way?
Well, I think it's so important to really support and nurture all communities, all populations within Los Angeles County. And the Filipino American community is so strong and so important, and their culture is important for me to recognize and to uplift and to honor. And I have the largest Filipino American population in my district, and I have many elected officials who are Filipino American. And I just believe that the more we can honor and celebrate different cultures, we're going to eventually foster a community that understands and loves and tolerates, or does not tolerate, hate. And the hate crimes that were perpetuated against Filipino Americans broke my heart. And I thought, we're not doing enough. We're not doing enough to raise this culture up and honor it and see people vocally say, this is a community that is important to Los Angeles community. This is a population that has contributed so much to Los Angeles County. It's worth honoring.
I did feel, all of us did feel the, genuine concern and authenticity, and that wasn't planned. That wasn't planned. That wasn't part of the program that we mentioned, that Cesar Echano, a survivor of Asian hate crime in Cerritos Park, at that very same park, and Nikki Ariola, the journalist that was attacked along with his wife in Sacramento, no less, state capital, right? So it was, and then the way you spoke about it. What can we expect more from you? Programs, projects. I know that the funding for the mural, as a reminder to all of us, came from your office as well. And I know that you've been very active, as well as your office, in providing support.
Well, of course. And again, I listen to the community. I listen what the needs are. I think having this festival, and you were a fantastic chair of this event this year, it was fabulous. The festival is important, and then anything else we can do that really promotes our AAP I Hate
Right.
campaign, I think is really important. And then, any kind of events that we can do, particularly for the seniors.
Right.
I'm all about the seniors because I am one. And whether it's pickleball or other programs in our senior centers, I think that's important to promote. So I will just be listening to my Filipino American community to see what they want, what some of the programs they want. But I'm all about building, parks and community centers and pools for people's, leisure time. Because I
Right.
think it's really important for people to have open space and to have recreation. I think it feeds the soul.
Also, yeah, health and wellness for
Yes.
sure, right? We also greatly appreciate that you took the time to even get yourself your Filipino wear, right?
I did.
And you rocked it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Also, eating our Filipino Jollibee lunch, which is
The best fried chicken I've ever had. I had the fried chicken. It was fantastic.
it's our pride
It's
and
fantastic.
joy. A company that started from the Philippines is now expanding
Fantastic.
exponentially here in the U.S.
Right. Well, I loved going shopping for my outfit, and really, I was taken very good care of and shown a lot of the outfits, and I want to get more than one. So, but I
Yes.
believe that's just a small gesture to say, I appreciate this fashion. I appreciate your culture. I appreciate the beauty that you bring to our district, and I
Right.
want to wear it and appreciate it.
It's important for us to see you in that garb because then you're saying to us that you're one with us as well, and we appreciate that as well, right? Toyota, you mentioned that I was able to get a lot of sponsors,
Fantastic.
but Toyota specifically told me that they had a 2-car display at the venue. It was the BZ4X, which is their all-electric car, and then the Sequoia, which they are now launching as a full hybrid. And they told me that they specifically chose those cars because they know that you are you have been a proponent of electrification for a very long time now.
I have. I've been a big believer in, sustaining our environment and doing whatever we can to cut down on greenhouse gases
Right.
that cause climate change. I was one of 2 members of Congress that drove an all-electric vehicle when I was in Congress.
Right.
So I've had either an electric vehicle or a hybrid for a very long time. I believe in it. So I'm glad they did that. I think more and more people are now realizing that sort of the kinks are out of electric vehicles, and they're really such a good car to drive, and it's good for the environment.
Right. Also, all this to say that you probably are not aware, but the impact that you have on several people, on several organizations, even Jollibee knew about you, and they said yes. They will be very happy to know that you try their food
delicious.
at our event. And then, like I said, Toyota, because I know that you have been working so hard really to listen and to address the concerns of your constituents. If you sum it all up in the years that you've been in service, what are the maybe top 3 or 5 things that you're proud of that you've done?
Yeah, well, I think I would have to put at the top of the list the opportunity I had to return beachfront property to the Bruce family. This was Willa and Charles Bruce 100 years ago in Manhattan Beach, who were driven out by racist people who just did not want black families living there and recreating at the beach. Their property was taken from them, and then 100 years later, I began to look into it, I began to read about it, I began to understand it, and then it hit me that I was capable of doing something really historic, right, brave,
Yes.
courageous, but needed to be done, and that was to give the property back to the remaining grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren of this couple. So that will probably be at the top of my list of what I was able to do. And those are the kinds of things that are, they're just circumstances that seem to, I don't want to say fall on my lap, but they do. It's not something I ever set out to do. It's not why I ran for office. It's not something I had thought about, that I'm going to right some historical wrongs.
Yes.
And then they present themselves to you. And I think that's what makes for a good leader, is someone's ability to have a perspective and judgment in the moment, to know what can and can't be done. Because there were a lot before me who knew about that property and never did anything.
Right. It's a strong moral compass to really, what sits right and what can I do. And now that you're in a position of influence to do something about it, to really do something. Although I know that it's not easy as well, because there's always two sides. There are some that are happy that you did that, there are some that are not. And it's not just in that case, in all the other things that you do as well. How do you deal with detractors and negativity?
Sometimes I deal okay, sometimes I don't. But yeah, on the Bruce's Beach, for instance, I lost some friends over that. I had some friends that were just very unhappy and felt like I had lost my way. And, but people will tell you, well, then they weren't your friends anyway, right?
True.
But I do know there's two sides. And again, I try to weigh everybody's opinion. But at the end of the day, it's me and how do I sleep at night? What do I think about my decisions and my judgment? And if I come out feeling it was the right thing to do, then I just try to have the courage and the bravery to stick with it. But sometimes of course, I'm a human being. Of course, it bothers me when people disagree with me. But at the end of the day, I'm the one here. I'm the one that was elected. I've got to be the one that shows, leadership and courage in this situation.
When it's like that, I know some leaders have spoken about when they make a decision, they have pictures of their family, which you do, pictures of your grandchildren here, because they say it reminds them when they're about to make an important decision, they look at the future, their children or their grandchildren, and it helps them. Are you that type?
Well, I'll tell you what I love is my grandchildren follow me on Instagram. So like the Bruce's Beach, for instance, they were texting me. And they're just like, they call me Mimi. They're like, Mimi, you rock,
Oh.
So they give me instant feedback. They follow me and they tell me when they think I'm doing something amazing. So of course that makes it all worthwhile.
Right. Also, as a public figure, at the end of the day, someone once told me this, and I always remind myself as well, at the end of the day, what's important is that you have the love and respect of the people you love and respect. Right. Everything else is just noise, right? Yeah.
Right. But for me, also it goes back to my father. The people that came up to me after Bruce's Beach and said, your father would be so proud of you. Yeah. So it's almost like he's giving me a word from heaven, right? Because people tell me, oh, your father would be so proud of you.
Right. I was thinking about that too when you're talking about that. It's the legacy. Your children, your grandchildren will live through that and will inherit whatever legacy you have, the same way that you are inheriting all this good vibes from what your dad, the father, has done, right? And I know that while you consider that an accomplishment, are there more? Is there?
I was trying to think, it's hard to you're just working so hard every day, you don't really stop and think about what your accomplishments were. I think one of the other things, again, that just fell in my lap when I first was elected County Supervisor in 2016, one of the first constituent calls I got was from a family in Manhattan Beach who wanted me to know that his wife, who was only 56 at the time, had gone missing. Oh. They had been at the LA County Museum of Art. She had early signs of Alzheimer's and dementia. And they watched her very carefully, but she had gone to the restroom and they turned their backs for a minute and she walked away from the museum and they couldn't find her. So we kind of had this all-out help, search. I tried to marshal all the county resources to see if we could find her. Unfortunately, it did not have a good ending. They found her a couple of years later. They finally found her remains. But from that tragedy, her husband and I began to talk about what should we do in the future when someone goes missing. There's got to be a better protocol way besides the family handing out flyers by themselves. And we formed a task force that met regularly. And one of the things that came from the task force was the idea of a trackable bracelet that people could wear, that, you know, it wasn't, you know, GPS, like you wouldn't be following them, but in the event that they went missing and they were wearing a bracelet, their loved one could call 911 and say they're wearing bracelet number.
Right.
And immediately our LA County Sheriff's Department would be all in, send up a helicopter, and then they could tell by the pinging
Where
the person
area
was, and we began to find people within minutes or hours instead of what happened to Nancy. So that's something, again, no one else had ever thought about doing, and I feel like we've had some really good stories where people have gone missing and they were returned to their loved ones quickly. So I would say those two are something I think will change, you know, the direction for people's lives in a different way.
Definitely.
But I look at those and I'm happy about.
Right.
Although, you know, just building a pool.
Yes.
You know, in Whittier, I've had people come up and tell me, thank you so much for building that pool. I take my kids there every summer. Or I was somewhere the other night where someone, in Whittier, and they thanked me for a skate park that I built. They said, we just want to thank you for the skate park you built because, you know, before you built that, our kids had nothing to do. Now our kids go there every night, and you have no idea what a difference that made. You know, or putting in a crosswalk where someone had gotten hit, or a signal at a dangerous intersection. I just, you know, those things I do, but I'm sure at the end of my career, I'll look back and go, you know, those things saved lives or improved the quality of life for people. And, you know, I have to be thankful that I was able to do those things.
Right. But you're not yet done. There's more. What other things do you want to accomplish?
I think for me, one of the big things I want to do is complete a train, a light rail that goes from Artesia to downtown Los Angeles, Union Station. It's currently called the West Santa Ana Branch. We're going to give it a new name. But there are so many communities along that right-of-way that are the most underserved communities in terms of public transportation. They have no public transportation, and many of them struggle to take several buses and transfer to other trains to get to jobs, to get to the hospital, to get to school. And this is a project that I have been really working on since actually before I became an LA County Supervisor. So I hope to do that. It's, you know, it's slow, but I am lobbying Sacramento, I'm lobbying Washington, D.C. for federal dollars. I want to build that project, and so that's one of the things, if I'm reelected for another 4 years, I'm really gonna you know, push everyone involved to get that train built for people who've been waiting a very long time. Again, back to my dad. My dad built the very first blue line that goes from Long Beach to downtown LA. That was his. He championed that.
Right.
So I'm channeling my father.
You wanted, something something like that. But no, I lost my trail of thought because just looking at you now, just conversation about so much that you've accomplished and you still want more. I look at the pictures of your grandchildren. You don't have to do this because, you know, you're, at the stage of your life where you can sit back, enjoy what you've done. You've already accomplished so much. You want to enjoy time with your grandchildren, but you still want to push on. Why is that?
That's a good question. I have a lot of my friends who are retired by now, and they're like, "Why are you still
traveling?
Working?
Yeah.
Why are you still working?" I do. You know, it's something that I feel a purpose. When I get up in the morning, I know that I have a purpose and I have things to do, and there's projects to be completed, and there's a part of me that thinks no one else is going to be able to do that but me. And that's the drive, that's the ambition, that's the feeling of I've been doing this long enough that I know that my skill set is better than probably anybody else that could do this job, and I've got to keep doing it until I can't anymore, and I can't because of term limits one more time.
Right.
But I still think there's a lot to do. I know a lot of people are depending on me. A lot of people still need things, or still underserved, or still wanting county government to work for them. And I think I'm the one that can make that happen.
And we think so too. Thank you so much for giving us time today and talking to us, talking to our community and to our viewers. And thank you for everything that you've done for your constituents, for your district, for our Philippine American community.
Thank you so much. I really wanted to be able to speak to your viewers, and so thank you for giving me that opportunity.